Federal operating permitting is a variety of things depending on where you are in the country. Some states, it's just the regulations you're applicable. Some states, it's everything. So depending on what state you're in, you might be building a new plant and doing emission calculations. And then other states, you may just simply be identifying the regulations you're subject to. The portion that I am really best at and feel just passionate about is the regulation side. It's fascinating, it's interesting because it's when you get into the subtleties, they're very similar concepts in every regulation. So a federal operating permit takes all the regulations that are applicable at the site to all the various equipment and helps them try to come up with a playbook. It's essentially what you're looking at is a document that the state agency publishes that's a playbook of what you need to do for your equipment, what you're subject to, what monitoring, what standards, what controls, all the things that you need to be taken care of for your equipment. So we essentially help you build your playbook. Now, if you take it a step further, you get this permit, you're gonna actually wanna know how to implement your playbook. And that's when the fun start really happening. We take and help you identify, okay, it says you have to monitor your tanks. Well, how are you gonna do that? Who's gonna do that? What's your team? What's your schedule? So now we outline how you're gonna take your playbook, your permit, and actually make it happen in your facility. So extending your compliance document into your day-to-day activities. Now we work with everyone at your plant, down to the operators, your engineers, your design systems, your design teams, to incorporate all these requirements into your everyday operations. So it's not just an environmental regulation coming in and as an add-on. We actually incorporate into things that they're already doing. And that's when you find the greatest value of a really strong compliance program is when it's just part of what you do every day, and having a consultant that works with you to identify how we make environmental part of something they're doing already, where it's not an added burden, makes everyone's life a lot easier. So incorporating your permit, your activities of what you need to do every day, not just as an environmental requirement that adds on as another burden on your plant or on your individuals, incorporating the things that your folks do, your operators, your design engineers, into the systems they use constantly, every day, their walkthroughs, their DCS systems, incorporating it into your existing operations makes it as easy as possible for everyone. It makes your life a lot easier because you're not adding an additional burden on your team. So building your permit, we work with you to identify all of the systems, equipment, emission sources that are potentially applicable to a variety of regulations, going through your federal, your state regulations, your local regulations, and identifying all of the controls you're required to implement, how you have to monitor those, and then when you have to report on them as well. We identify those, help you wrap them up depending on what location you're in. Some states have very rigorous forms, some of them you just write a narrative. But we help you identify all those requirements down to the equipment level and write this narrative. State issues you that permit, becomes your playbook. We then work with you to implement those plays out in your facility. We then take a step back again, look at what was the equipment, what was the subject. Do you have systems in place that already monitor? But can we just use those systems with a slight tweak rather than adding an entirely new system? Yes, there are cases where you do have to add new systems to meet regulations, but we really try to work with our clients to look at what they're doing today, what their operators doing today, not just what environmental is doing today, but what their design teams, their operations teams are doing every day to incorporate environmental into what's going on now so it's not adding a new burden. We like to make your life easier. So Sage brings an extensive team with a wealth of experience in the air permitting industry. We have individuals that helped write some of the regulations that you're going to be subject to in your applications. So who better to help you tell the state agencies or the federal agencies what you're applicable to than the guy that originally wrote it for them. So they can help you walk through the path of knowing what controls, what monitoring, what reporting is going to be required for your equipment, and help you navigate through what is the control option that's going to really work best for your site. Because you never know what the best thing is until you really sit down and evaluate your site. I started in federal permitting from day one. Right out of college, I walk into a massive federal permitting application, looking at regulations, diving into regulations, understanding equipment, controls, standards, monitoring, lots and lots of line items. Really loved, as an engineer, boiling it all down into just line items and tables of this condition leads to these results. So great when you can boil down a 60-page regulation to a 7x5 table. So helping people understand that those regulations can be easily identified in some cases so that it's easily implemented at your site.